Whiskey Pete or Pete Hegseth, him and Donald Trump, they have seemed ecstatic about just taking boats out of the water, blowing up people, blowing up boats. This was on Whiskey Pete's, this is on his Twitter page. It says, for your Christmas list, Franklin targets narco terrorists. And we have Franklin the turtle blowing up boats, blowing up people. They are celebrating blowing up people. This is Whiskey Pete. And then after making that post about blowing folks up in the water, he reshares this tweet from the GOP talking about Jesus. It says, Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. These are some very interesting Christians. They are so blood hungry. They're so bloodthirsty. They want to take people out. They want to blow people up, and then they want to claim to be Jesus people. I don't get this, but this is how this makes sense to them. Christianity and MAGA and blowing people up. It makes sense to them. So before we talk about the fallout of them blowing people up and blowing up boats without due process, here on November 28th, he says, we have only just begun to take out narco terrorists. He said this right here on his Twitter page. And then this person right here, he says, except for the ones that are being pardoned, of course, because we have seen that Donald Trump just pardoned a drug kingpin. So on one hand, they are talking about, their war on drugs. They're talking about, let's blow people up. And then on the other hand, you have Donald Trump saying, let's let these people out. Makes total sense. The chaos just makes total sense. So Ron Filikowski says of Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump blowing up boats in the water, simply saying that they had drugs on the boats, even though we don't know that for sure because they blew up the boats and they blew up the people. Simply saying that we are at war is not enough. And what Ron Filikowski said, I would call Pete Hegseth a war criminal, but we aren't at war. He's just a mass murderer. All right, now let's look a little bit deeper into what's going on. This was on PD Pete's Twitter just on Monday. He posted this on Monday. He said, let's make one thing crystal clear. Admiral Mitch Bradley is an American hero, a true professional, and has my 100% support. I stand by him in the combat decisions he has made on the September 2nd mission and all others since. America is fortunate to have such men protecting us. When this Department of War says we have the back of our warriors, we mean it. And when he says we have the backs of these warriors, he means the back on the ground as the bus runs over them. Because the way he just threw Admiral Mitch Bradley under the bus, that was amazing. He's acting like he is supporting him, but he is saying that this was his call. This is the call of Admiral Mitch Bradley. Now, who is that? So here's Admiral Mitch Bradley. So I got this from Yahoo News. Who is Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley, and what does he have to do with the Venezuela boat strikes? The Trump administration is laying responsibility for a second strike that took out survivors on Bradley rather than on Pete Hegseth. Navy Vice Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley will brief senior members of the Senate and House Armed Services Committees on Thursday about his role in the Trump administration's controversial September 2nd attack on a suspected drug boat from Venezuela, an attack that culminated in an alleged second strike that may have violated U.S. and international law by taking out two survivors who were clinging to the ship's wreckage. Bradley may also provide information about Whiskey Pete's involvement in the double tap incident. The Washington Post reported on Friday that before the initial strike, Whiskey Pete verbally directed Special Operations Command to take out everybody on board the boat, and that Bradley ordered the second strike to comply with PD Pete's instructions. That story sparked shock and outrage on Capitol Hill, with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle vowing to conduct vigorous oversight, and several describing the expiring or the unaliving shipwreck survivors as a possible war crime. A couple of weeks ago, when Democratic lawmakers made that video saying that service members should not obey illegal orders, they were talking about this type of thing. Because if Hegseth told them to take out everybody, and that meant that they were doing something illegal. They had a constitutional responsibility to ignore illegal orders. But if they went through with this, all of these people from top to bottom need to pay that price. They need to be held accountable. If they are mass murderers, they all need to be taken out. They need to face consequences. So I already showed you this tweet. Admiral Mitch Bradley is an American hero, a true professional, and has my 100% support. People were resharing that and quoting it, like this man quoting decisions he has made, and then basically is this Cartman throwing Cartman underneath the bus? So he's saying that that's Admiral Mitch Bradley getting thrown under the bus. Hubie says, and once again, my friends, this is exactly why you do not follow illegal orders. PJ says, I hope Admiral Bradley is lawyering up, but I have very little sympathy. He knew the law and should have told Pete Hegseth and Trump to F off. Britt says, how to point the finger at someone while pretending to support them. We got Joshua saying, you don't understand. Real masculinity is throwing your admirals under the bus to cover up the war crimes you commanded them to do. If they refuse to do it, it's sedition. If they comply, they're wholly to blame. Are you starting to understand how this works? Antonio says, pay attention, active duty military. It is so effing disgusting that Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are sacrificing Admiral Mitch Bradley for their illegal strike order that took out 2 survivors. This is exactly what the Democrat 6 tried to warn you about. They are using military personnel to carry out their illegal orders, and it is the military whom they will blame and punish for those orders. They will sacrifice you to The Hague every single time. How anyone that cares about the military personnel can support these people is immoral. And so this is probably why this happened in October. Top Admiral steps down abruptly amid drug boat strikes. Admiral Alvin Hosley oversees Southern Command, where U.S. military strikes against alleged Venezuelan drug traffickers at sea have ramped up. Remember, this happened October 16th. Defense Secretary Pete on Thursday announced that the top military official overseeing military strikes against the Venezuelan drug runners will retire at the end of the year. A surprising move given that the 4-star admiral took command less than a year ago. Admiral Alvin Hosley's abrupt departure as the head of the U.S. Southern Command, which oversees U.S. military operations in Latin America, comes as Trump has conducted lethal strikes against Venezuelan drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean Sea. U.S. forces have destroyed at least 5 boats since early September, taking out more than 24 people. It's been more than that as of now. And Trump this week floated the idea of conducting land strikes against Venezuelan cartels, though he offered no details. Hegseth, who announced the retirement in a post on X, did not give a reason for Hosley's departure or immediately name his successor. He thanked Hosley, hailed him as having exemplified the highest standards, and said that he demonstrated unwavering commitment to mission, people, and nation. So this dude bounced because he probably knew what was going to come down the pipeline, especially with the way these people are so bloodthirsty. Dozy Don and Whiskey Pete were having a press conference. Dozy Don, obviously, he's not really paying too much attention here. They were having this conversation, and the press office put out this quote. Whiskey Pete said, "This is the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned office or up on Capitol Hill, and you nitpick and you plant fake stories. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes." I'm about to show you this clip from Whiskey Pete. But as you are listening to him talk, because he's talking and he's very aware, I want you to watch the body language of Dozy Don. He is not all there. This dude is not well at all. So go ahead and watch this. I'm putting it at the end on purpose, just in case people want to swipe away. I'm not coming back after this, but y'all need to see this and let me know what you think about the way they are taking responsibility. They're saying we're going to strike more people, but yet it seems like they are going to start throwing other people under the bus. So let me know what you think about all of this.
To be clear, after that first strike. I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters. President Trump has empowered commanders to do what is necessary, which is dark and difficult things in the dead of night on behalf of the American people. We support them.